Chapter 7. The First Cut. The first day of fall semester arrived with a kind of crisp clarity Winston hadn't felt in months. Late August sunlight bounced off the glass exterior of Chesapeake Culinary Institute, catching on stainless steel and polished floors inside. Students gathered in small clusters near the entrance, white chef coats folded over their arms, knife kits slung across their shoulders like instruments. Winston adjusted the strap of his own knife roll and took a slow breath. He was 20 years old. Most of the incoming class looked 18. Fresh from high school, wide-eyed, loud. He felt it immediately, the difference, not just in age, but in weight. They talked about dorm assignments and TikTok recipes and how excited they were to become famous chefs. Winston said nothing. He wasn't here for fame. He was here because the kitchen had become the only place that made sense. Inside the main demonstration hall, rows of workstations gleamed under bright overhead lights. Each station held a cutting board, a set of measuring tools, sanitized towels, and a laminated sheet labeled Knife Skills, Foundations of Precision. A tall man with salt and pepper hair and a severe expression stood at the front. Chef Laurent, he introduced himself without smiling. You are not here to be creative. You are here to be correct. The room quieted instantly. In this program, discipline precedes artistry. Precision precedes personality. If you cannot cut a carrot evenly, you have no business designing a plate. Winston felt something tighten in his chest. Not fear, but focus. Chef Laurent held up a carrot. This, he said, is not a vegetable. It is an assessment. A few students laughed nervously. He did not. You will begin with julienne, 2 inches long, 1/8 inch thick, uniform, always uniform. Winston unrolled his knife kit carefully. He had spent good money on it. Balanced steel, clean edge. At home, he had grown comfortable chopping scallions and slicing peppers. This felt different. This felt clinical. Chef Laurent demonstrated slowly, hands steady, blade gliding in measured strokes. Each cut was identical. No hesitation, no flourish. When Winston began, confidence lasted exactly 20 seconds. His first slice was too thick. The second, too short. By the fourth, he felt heat creeping up his neck. Across from him, a girl with pink highlighted hair moved quickly and precisely. He glanced at her pile. Perfect. He looked at his, uneven. Chef Laurent moved down the row like an inspector. He stopped at Winston's station. Name. Winston. Background. Computer science. Chef Laurent's eyebrow lifted slightly. Ah. He picked up one of Winston's cuts between 2 fingers. Is this 1/8 inch? Winston hesitated. No, chef. It is not. The carrot piece dropped back onto the board. Again. No anger, no encouragement, just expectation. Winston reset his stance. Left hand curled properly, fingers tucked, knife grip firm. He slowed down. Cut, measure, adjust, cut again. The room filled with the steady percussion of blades hitting boards. After 30 minutes, his fingers began to ache. After 40, his shoulders tightened. After an hour, he felt a sting. He had been rushing. The blade slipped. A thin red line opened along the side of his index finger. For a split second, he stared at it. Bright, sharp, immediate. Step back, Chef Laurent said calmly. Apply pressure. Do not bleed on the board. Winston grabbed a towel, pressing hard. The cut wasn't deep, but it was enough to remind him. Precision matters. Discipline matters. Chef Laurent watched him for a moment. You rushed, he said evenly. Yes, chef. Why? Winston opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't know. Ego? Impatience? The need to prove he belonged? Chef Laurent nodded slightly, as if reading his silence. The knife punishes haste, he said. It rewards patience. Winston returned to his station once the bleeding slowed. He wrapped his finger tightly and resumed cutting. Slower this time. Deliberate. By the end of class, his cuts were closer to uniform. Not perfect, closer. Chef Laurent inspected his final pile. He didn't smile, but he didn't correct him either. Progress, he said. One word. It felt earned. In the locker room afterward, Winston peeled off his chef coat and examined his finger more closely. The cut throbbed faintly. It felt symbolic in a way he didn't want to admit. At Frederick Douglass University, mistakes had been conceptual, syntax errors, miscalculations, missed logic. Here, mistakes marked skin. The girl with the pink highlights approached him. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah." "First blood?" She grinned. He nodded. "I'm Claire," she said, extending a hand. "Pastry focus." Winston. "Career switch?" "Yeah." She studied him for a second. "You look like you carry more than most freshmen." He shrugged. "Life." She didn't press. "See you tomorrow. We're doing brunoise." He almost groaned. The following days blurred into repetition. Julienne, brunoise, bâtonnet, chiffonnade. Chef Laurent demanded uniformity with relentless precision. Students who rushed were corrected sharply. Students who talked too much were silenced with a glance. Winston stayed quiet. He arrived early. He practiced hand positioning at home with onions and potatoes. His parents watched him from the kitchen doorway as he lined up diced vegetables in neat rows like soldiers. "You measuring them?" his father asked once. "Yes." His father shook his head, amused but impressed. The more Winston practiced, the more he realized something. Knife work required presence. If his mind wandered, to Andre, to debt, to doubt, the blade slipped. He had to be fully there, and in that focus there was relief. One afternoon during lab, Chef Laurent paired students to critique each other's cuts. Winston found himself partnered with a younger student named Matteo. "Man, my hands hurt," Matteo muttered. "Mine too." They compared piles. Matteo's were fast but inconsistent. Winston's were slower, more measured. "You're methodical," Matteo observed. "I have to be." "Why?" Winston paused. "Because I don't get second chances with the knife." Matteo laughed lightly, not catching the deeper meaning. But Winston felt it. The knife demanded accountability. No excuses, no distractions, just execution. Midway through the week, Chef Laurent brought out a large sack of onions. "You will dice all of these," he announced. Groans rippled through the room. "Tears are irrelevant," he added. The onions stung immediately. Eyes burned. Noses ran. Students sniffled and cursed under their breath. Winston welcomed it. The sting masked something else. As he chopped, tears fell freely down his cheeks. No one questioned it. He worked steadily, letting the rhythm guide him. He thought of Andre, of the first time they'd cooked together after the funeral, of the smell of thyme in the kitchen. The blade moved cleanly through layers, uniform, precise. When Chef Laurent inspected his onions, he nodded once. "You are improving." Winston met his gaze. "Thank you, Chef." Later that evening, as he cleaned his knife carefully and slid it back into its roll, he felt something settle inside him. He had been humbled. He had bled. He had been corrected. And he had not walked away. That mattered. At home, he unwrapped the bandage on his finger. The cut was already beginning to close. A thin reminder. He flexed his hand slowly. The pain was manageable, necessary. In the mirror above the sink, he caught his reflection. Chef coat collar slightly wrinkled. Shoulders broader than when he'd first stepped onto campus. Eyes sharper. He no longer felt like a drifting former computer science student. He felt like a beginner, raw, unpolished, uncooked, but beginning. Precision mattered, discipline mattered. And for the first time since stepping into Chesapeake Culinary Institute, Winston understood that talent would not carry him. Only repetition, only humility, only heat. He turned off the kitchen light and headed upstairs, finger throbbing faintly, mind steady. Tomorrow would bring another blade, and he would be ready.